you would like to chat with folks. We would love to hear from you and pepper in your commentary throughout the conversation as well, just to add a bit more flavor and context. Q&A box is also open. I know all of our panelists are eager to answer questions that you might have, so please feel free to make use of that as well. We're running some polls throughout. There are some professional development credits at the end of the session, and we are also recording everything, and we'll send it out after when it's ready. All right, now we will start getting into that mindset of this topic for today. So I thought I'd share a little bit more about the reason why we chose this topic of, creating belonging, recognition for DEIB and culture building, because belonging is one of the most powerful drivers of employee engagement and retention. And when people feel like they belong, they're more motivated, they're more collaborative, and they're more likely to bring their full selves to work. I'm sure the panel will share more about their experiences in that aspect as well in a few moments here. And belonging just doesn't happen by accident. We have to be really intentional, as we've been seeing through all of the suggestions that people are making about how to make sure other people feel included. And so recognition is one of these levers that can help to reinforce belonging and build that culture of belonging every single day at work. And so in this session, we really want to explore how recognition is a thing that we can use to build cultures where everyone feels welcomed, respected, and that they're valued. And so we will always love hearing your thoughts on topics. So I'm just going to launch a quick poll here. All right. And as you all are answering that, Rachel, I'll pass it to you because we're just so lucky to have these three wonderful practitioners with us today. These are all leaders who have initiatives in place and also experiences and stories to share about what they've seen work when it comes to creating belonging. So Rachel, I'll kick it off to you to start off with the introductions, lead us into the fireside. We can start with hearing all about who you all are, what you do, a little bit about your company, just to add some color commentary and the perspectives that you're hoping to bring to this conversation. Rachel?
Well, thank you, Becca, and hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon. Great to be part of the conversation today. I'm Rachel. I'm the Director of Customer Success here at Buckless Rewards. I lead our customer success team and support our clients in building recognition programs that really truly drive value and impact and create cultures where people feel valued and appreciated. I'll be helping facilitate today's session. We'll kick off with our first fireside chat question in just a moment, but first I'm going to pass it over to our lovely panelists here to introduce themselves, and then we'll jump right in. I'm going to start with you, Mary. You want to introduce yourself?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Rachel, and super excited to just share this space with all of you this morning or whatever time it is in the world for you. But I'm Mary Newville. I'm Director of People Experience at Arctic Wolf. We are a cybersecurity company on a mission to end cyber risk, which is a huge calling, but it gets us out of bed every day. There's always new challenges to solve to protect our customers, that we can create a safer and better world for human flourishing. And I'm so excited to talk about this topic today because it is something that gets me out of bed every day. And one of my favorite things about working for an organization with such a powerful mission that's growing so fast is that part of my role is to impact all the people that are part of that mission, and how can their well-being fuel our success, right? And not have our success be at the detriment of our people. And how can the diversity of thought and an incredible community that fosters psychological safety bring about like the best ideas that we can achieve that mission, all the while people being better in the process. So I think belonging is such a huge component of that. And those are some of the perspectives I'm excited to share today.
That's fantastic, Mary. Well said. Excited for your presence today. Tanya, I'll pass it over to you.
Sure. Thank you, Rachel. Happy to be here with this distinguished panel. So I have actually been a healthcare practitioner for over 20 years, with over 10 of those being in the diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging space. I am currently the Vice President of Human Resources and Organization Development at Maimonides Health Medical Center. Which is located in Brooklyn, New York. We are actually the largest health system in Brooklyn, New York. and have received a number of accolades that we don't have time to get into, but we can talk about at another time. But prior to my role here at Maimonides, which has now been 3 years, I was also the Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer for staff at Columbia University Medical Center. So it's no surprise that for me, coming as part of this panel and for this session, my intention is on sharing engagement and belonging insights from my full experiences, not just what I'm currently doing here at my organization. And I'm excited for this conversation.
Wonderful. Thank you, Tanya. We're excited to hear about your experiences throughout your career. And Mindy, last but not least, I'll pass it to you.
Yeah, Mindy Montgomery. I use she, her pronouns, and I work at Keen Footwear as the director of global culture and communications. If for of those of you who don't know who Keen Footwear is, we are a family-owned, values-led company that make footwear for the outdoors and travel, as I mentioned before. We've been around since 2003, and our goal is to make footwear to make a difference. So we design with purpose, we consciously create our products while reducing impact, and we're always putting people, planet, and product first. So good organization. In my role, I'm in charge of things such as internal communications, employee surveys, employee events, and rewards and recognition programs. One of the things, like Mary said previously, one of the things that I really enjoy about my role is I put people first and I listen to what they need and I elevate their feedback to the executive team. I'm privileged that I work at an organization where I have access to them, and we meet once every 3 weeks and discuss what employees are thinking and how we can improve the organization. So that's a really unique thing that I think I really value about being at Keen, and I think it really marries this DEIB and recognition together into that.
Fantastic, Mindy. Thank you for those insights. And I personally am aligned with the Keen values. I really enjoy how you align your product with your personal values as well. Excellent. So we're going to go ahead and kick things off with our fireside chat. I do want to let everybody know that these questions are driven from the community. So I do want to thank everyone who was involved in creating questions for today's sessions. So our first question for today is why does belonging and inclusion matter so much in the workplace today, and what does that look like in practice at your organization? I'm going to kick it off for Mary to start off here. Over to you, Mary.
Thank you. Yes, I think we're all here. I'm passionate about belonging, and even Rebecca shared in the introduction that belonging is one of the strongest predictors of engagement. And I think in terms of like, why is it so important in the workplace today? I think it's always been important in the workplace and probably even more so today with whether it's what's going on in the world or the political climate and technology and the disconnection with how we live. We were made for community and connection. And so creating that through work where people are spending the majority of their lives, it's such a powerful way to leave the world a better place, while also selfishly too for organizations, it's better for the bottom line as well. So I think we could spend the whole conversation talking about the reasons why it's so important today. But at Arctic Wolf, one of the ways this looks practically is we call DEIB, or Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, Belonging, whatever acronyms or words you use at your organizations, we actually call it Pack Unity at Arctic Wolf. We're Arctic Wolf, so we literally howl when we're celebrating, and everything we do is related to some kind of wolf pun. So we don't really call our employees, we call them pack members or wolves. And Pack Unity was kind of a natural extension of that. And so, but I love it. I love Pack Unity because in the name itself, it shows us what we want this to look like at our organization. And it's not uniformity. It's not hate to be here. you need to think like us. You need to agree with us on this. You need to have this kind of religion or belief system. You need to live a certain way. You need to look a certain way. It's unity. We want to come together with our diverse backgrounds, experiences, passions, skill sets, the way we think, and the diversity of who we are. We want to come together to do something really great. And we're only going to do that something really great if we have diverse perspectives, backgrounds, and people so that we can make the best product. And again, at the same time, not just that outcome, but who we become in the process and how we grow as people and how we treat each other as human beings and have a lived experience on this journey to whatever goal we're having. So I'm really passionate about Pack Unity, repping it today with my Zoom background. And I know the other gals have great things to say as well. So I'll leave it at that. For us, it's about unity and not uniformity.
Very well said, Mary. And I imagine your team really feels that sense of community and that sense of belonging, being part of a pack where they drive that success and that employee experience together. So that's really great, Mary. Thanks for sharing. Tanya, I want to hear your thoughts on this question.
Sure, thank you. I love everything that Mary says. And for me, I would say belonging and inclusion matters because it's really not about a nice to have at this point in time and the climate that we're currently in. It's really essential for any organization's health. To be quite frank, it's should be woven into all of our cultures and our decision making, so that people can ultimately bring their best selves to work, and feel as if that they're being seen, heard, and respected while at work. At the organizations that I've worked at, it's never considered a side initiative or a project that we're working on when it comes to diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging work. It really has to be interwoven when it comes to equity and inclusion. It should be in everyday practices. It should be how we run meetings, how we design recognition programs, and even how we promote our leaders.
Very well said, Tanya. What I heard you say is we all have a need for psychological safety in the workplace. It's a fundamental human need, and we need to feel safe and secure in our environment. And your initiatives are really highlighting the need for safety and belonging in the workplace. Thank you so much for sharing. Mindy, wanted to hear your thoughts on this topic as well.
Yeah, Mary and Tanya did such a great job of explaining why they matter in an organization. So I'll just speak to what it looks like in practice at Keen. And we have a Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion JEDI working group, which consists of individuals from around the organization who have opted in to do this work. And one of the main goals of our group is to integrate JEDI into the way systems are designed throughout our organization. So the thought being, if we design inclusive systems, then real belonging can take place. And eventually, the hope is our JEDI working group won't be needed, as the practices and systems will be embedded and ingrained really throughout the organization. One quick example of this is single stall restrooms. We have a number of them throughout our headquarters building. Was the typical sign on the outside of the person in pants / person in a dress. And what we did as a JEDI working group is we bought the all genders welcome signs and put those on the restrooms. So we're really truly impacting the systems at the organization, and just making sure that belonging is really interwoven throughout everything.
That's a really powerful way to put it, Mindy. And by integrating systems into everything that you do, you're creating that sense of belonging that's naturally taking place. And it's a reminder to all of the work is ongoing. That's fantastic to hear. Thank you, Mindy. I'll pause here for a moment and invite any questions from the community here, or thoughts. Please feel free to use the chat. Any questions for Mary, Tanya, Mindy, or thoughts on maybe some initiatives or programs that you do at your organization? Okay. You can let the group think about that as well, and we'll also save some time near the end for some additional questions and Q&A. Oh, we had a comment from Crystal. At what point is being too inclusive, excluding people? That's a question from Crystal CEO. Very good question.
It's hard. That's a hard question. I'm curious the context. Like if something happened where, here's one guess, and I think I'm just guessing, but because it's hard for me to imagine inclusivity being exclusive, but is it exclusive when it's like, oh, you have to be voting the same way as me to ensure we align on all the same things? And then some people feel excluded. I don't know. I'm just spitballing here. Let's say sales versus ops. I'll let someone else take a stab at this.
I am not quite sure if I fully understand the question. I can say when I first saw it initially, the first thing that came to mind for me, because I had that question once in my career, is we try to celebrate every culture, every holiday at our organization. And there was one time that we missed one. And I had someone come up to me and said, "Hey, you celebrated these holidays and you didn't celebrate my holiday that was unique to me and my culture." And of course, I felt bad. It wasn't intentional, but that's the only thought that I had. And there are times where you would want to be inclusive and ensure that everyone is being represented at the organization or feel welcomed. But there are also times where you may unintentionally have someone feel as if they're excluded when the intention is to be very inclusive.
Mhm.
Mhm.
You know what I was just thinking too is maybe it's a bias, who knows, but potentially defining what inclusive means would be helpful. Like, does it mean we're all warm fuzzies, having, I don't know, doing events all the time, or is it equal respect for everybody, regardless of your background, equal opportunity to grow? Mindy talked about embedding JEDI, I love that acronym, into systems. Maybe reframing what inclusive mean. It's not necessarily making sure everybody goes to everything or everybody's aligned on all the same points, but is it, no matter where you stand, you're going to be treated with respect here and you're going to have equal opportunity. Just a thought.
Yeah, Mary, I think that's a great way to look at it, is really defining what inclusivity is and how the company is making their efforts towards making sure everyone feels included, no matter where they come from or their backgrounds. Yeah.
Yeah,
Great.
I like
I,
the way Anthony and Amanda have said it in the chat too. Being too inclusive only excludes people when inclusion is done without balance or clear goals. True inclusion means making space for everyone, not replacing one group with another. And Amanda said something similar. The key is recognizing that true inclusion means broadening the table without pushing out anyone else away. So I think to those points, if you're not excluding people, if you're doing it true, like making space for true inclusion and including everyone and not replacing or pushing anyone else away.
Mhm.
Being intentional with your efforts as well, I think is a key theme here. Excellent. Really great conversations and thoughts here, everyone from the panelists to folks in the chat as well. Let's move on to our second question for our session. So I'll ask the panelists, how do you know when employees truly feel a sense of belonging? What signals or metrics do you look at as a leader? And I'm going to start with Mary.
Yeah, I love the phrase like out of the overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks, or when you squeeze an orange juice comes out. And I think if you have belonging in your workplace, it shows up in how there's, I think, small ways that people feel a sense of belonging is in the small things, style, speech, Do they wear whatever they want to wear? I mean, as long as it falls within like meets your dress code, if you will, or professional standards, but can they express who they are through style? Can they talk the way they want to talk, or does everybody kind of look and talk the same and do the same things? Tanya was sharing earlier about holidays. Can people freely express Happy Holi or Hanukkah or Diwali or whatever it is and share who they are? They're not keeping who they are to themselves, but they feel safety to bring that into the workplace. Do they feel safe to have a picture of their family on their desk, no matter what that picture looks like, right? But one of the ways we intentionally measure it at our Dick Wolf is we look at engagement data. And so one of the things we do to measure, is belonging actually happening? Is it something we just say and we have all this feel good marketing and these cute Zoom backgrounds, or does this really impact how each employee feels on a day-to-day basis? And one of the ways we do that is through looking at our engagement survey scores. And this was actually something we did with our, what we call Pack Unity Alliances, our version of an employee resource group. But we opted to create an optional self-ID on the front end of a survey because we got feedback from some of our employee resource groups that they didn't feel comfortable self-IDing in Workday their maybe LGBTQ plus status or identity or anything. Like they didn't want to have it on record in Workday. And so a solution we came up with together was an optional self-ID on the front end of the survey so that when the results come in, we're still able to cut the data, not just by the majority and even big things like team or country, but what does the data look like when we cut it by ethnicity, by gender identity, by if you're a caregiver, if you have a disability, and because that optional self-ID is A, optional, but B, anonymous, not tied to any data in Workday, we get some really good data on the makeup of our employees so we know where to focus. And what we're so proud of and grateful for, and we don't take it for granted and know that it's something that together as a community, we always need to work towards. But when we cut our data, whether it's by gender, we see exact same levels of engagement between men and women or those that identify as outside of the normal gender binary to be very similar. Ethnicity at our Dick Wolf, when we cut our data and have all the different markers of ethnicity, it's usually the majority right now is white, but it's usually towards the bottom of the list and the score is high. Like the majority score is still high, but it's very cool to see some of these smaller groups or that represent a smaller makeup of the organization still score really high, if not higher than the majority score, which is really high, which to us is evidence that this isn't just something we say, it is something people truly feel. And that's just one example.
Thank you so much, Mary. That's such a great example of what belonging looks like in practice. Where when people feel safe and show up as their authentic selves, whether it's their style or how they talk or what they choose to share, that's when real inclusion is happening. And I also appreciate how you tied it to hard data as well. Fantastic. Tanya, what are your thoughts on this question?
Sure. Similar to Mary, I think that the data is very important. Some of the data that we look at in addition to the engagement surveys, retention trends, and even promotion data, just to see sort of what it's telling us, whether it's a positive or a negative story. And that's important. And I'll share some years ago when I would quarterly look at the promotion data, we noticed in a particular area of our company that persons with certain identities were being promoted at a higher rate than others. And it was not intentional. We knew it was not, but it was something that we noticed. And of course, the goal for me in my role at that time as the Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer was to ensure that there were interventions put in place after bringing it to their attention so that it doesn't happen going forward. The other thing that I wanted to double down on that Mary had indicated, it's about the behaviors as well. I really think that it's key. We mentioned psychological safety previously when we were speaking. I really think that that's a powerful signal when employees feel free to share their voice or their thoughts without any repercussions. But I'll just pause there. But everything Mary said so far was great also.
That's wonderful, Tanya. Really appreciate it and learn how you actually took action based on the data that you found. I think that's really, really powerful that you're putting in plans in place to make that change. Um, thank you so much, Tanya. Mindy, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's so hard going after these ladies. So I guess I'll say beyond survey stats, I feel like belonging shows up when employees are willing to share negative feedback. Most metrics track positivity. So when you're doing a survey, you like to look at engagement and satisfaction scores and employee net promoter scores. But I feel like candor is a true test. I know people feel safe when they trust the system enough to tell us what's not working, especially when it's in their own words through open text answers. So to me, that's another indication of belonging in action.
Absolutely. With all the positive feedback, we invite constructive feedback because that's the only way to learn and grow as an organization and put new initiatives in place to ensure it aligns with your DEIB initiatives. That's a really great point, Mindy. Thank you. We had a good question from Jacqueline in the chat, specifically to you, Tanya. What steps did you put in place to prevent promotions being higher within certain groups? Great question.
Sure. No, thank you for that question, Jacqueline. So as part of the conversation, what we looked at was what was the makeup as far as that particular department. And we wanted to ensure that when we're looking at promotions, that the rate of promotions for the respective groups matched what it looked like for the department. So we implemented trainings for the managers so that they're more aware from a diversity and especially equity standpoint, certain things that they should be looking at. We also put guardrails in place from a central standpoint, from an organizational level, to ensure that this doesn't just happen in this department going forward, but other departments across the organization. And I'll share my LinkedIn if anyone wants to delve more, because I don't think we'll have enough time to to get into a lot of the details. I saw that there was another question from, I think, Shannon earlier as well, a question that we had anticipated.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Tanya, for that insight. So okay, perfect. So just be mindful of the time. We'd love to move on to our next question. And it's around recognition. How can recognition help employees feel a stronger sense of belonging and inclusion in the workplace? And Mindy, I'm going to start with you this time.
I love this question. I feel like belonging and inclusion are positively impacted by recognition in that a formalized recognition platform such as Bucket List can serve as an equalizer. And so what I mean by that is it reduces the impact of differences in managers and teams. Let's be honest, some managers are not the greatest at giving feedback, and I'm sure y'all have experienced a manager like that at some point in your careers. Some managers don't think about recognition. It's just on to the next project or task. And on the flip side, some managers just are so good at it. They're so good at recognizing their people and teams. So what's great about a recognition platform is it gives the opportunity for peer-to-peer and cross-functional recognition as well, where perhaps before there wasn't a built-in process. You are probably seeing a theme with what I'm saying today, processes, which helps equalize, the platform helps equalize and bring more visibility to those who are behind the scenes as well, not just those who are on the spotlight all the time. And I think maybe the sales versus ops thing that was in the chat earlier might have to do with this a little bit. I do have an example here. I was at a conference recently talking to another attendee, and they mentioned how at their place of employment, their annual rewards was a popularity contest. And I think I also saw that in the chat, or actually I saw that in the poll. People were nominated at this organization of this person that I was talking to, and employees voted, and employees typically won in the largest departments and the most visible roles. That's probably pretty common. It looks like it's pretty common by the answer to the poll questions. Specifically for me, being in the outdoor and footwear industries, I know a lot of our diverse employees are overrepresented in lower paid frontline roles. I know that's common in a lot of industries. And knowing those roles don't tend to have a lot of internal visibility, I think it's imperative that our recognition systems don't over-index on the roles with internal visibility and more influence. So what we do is we offset that by taking the names out of the nomination review process for our annual Keen Awards ceremony. So we have the review committee fill out a rubric evaluating the nominations, nameless, against our brand values so that everything is standardized. And new this year, we actually added an audio video nomination option as well. So that expands access to folks who perhaps prefer to talk things out rather than write them down. Many of our folks see writing as an assignment and something they'd rather not do. They're deskless workers. We own several of our own factories and our distribution center. So those folks don't really want to write things down. They'd rather like submit an audio version, an audio recording of them nominating their coworker. So this opens the door for them as well. And I'm just going to close with systems, processes. If your systems unintentionally reward visibility over contribution, you'll really miss the people doing essential but less seen work. And I think belonging isn't just about celebrating, it's about designing so that everyone has an equal shot at being celebrated. Recognition should never just reflect those who have the most visibility. It should reveal contributions that otherwise would be invisible. So I encourage you all to think about how you can design your programs to recognize everybody equally. And I will also put my LinkedIn in the chat if you want to talk about that outside of here.
Fantastic, Mindy. If anyone needs any support or bounce ideas off Mindy about systems and processes, she is your gal. Thanks so much, Mindy. Accessibility is really important across the organizations to ensure everyone gets a chance to participate, particularly with those annual Keen Awards. I love how you tied it into audio and video submissions. And there even may be some employees that prefer to just have a chat with their leaders or their HR leaders. So that's wonderful insights. Thanks, Mindy. I'll pass it over to Tanya. What are your thoughts on this topic?
Sure, I'll definitely be reaching out to Mindy.
Same.
Yes.
But, just to add on to what Mindy shared, I would say that as organizations, we should really ensure that our programs are equitable and that they're done in a very authentic way. It's really about saying, when it comes to recognition, saying that I see you, you are valued, and what you did mattered. I'll share an example that I had as well recently. So in Brooklyn, we love block parties. And so we have one at work every year as well. And we had one for our employees this year. And what we noticed is that the employees that were supporting or working the block party were employees that were working for us. And one of the things that I decided to do is recognize those employees separately. And those happen to be the food services staff, our cleaning staff who cleaned up after the mess that we made at the block party, and the food services staff, they served the food at the block party. We actually had a celebration just for them at the venue that they wanted, the options of the food that they wanted, and they really, really, really appreciated that. So just ensuring that it's equitable, and that doesn't mean that everyone gets the same thing, right? That just means that everyone gets what they need ultimately. But I also wanted to share that for us, it was important for us to have options as well when it comes to our programs from a recognition standpoint. So we're actually going to be launching Bucket List within the coming weeks, and we're very excited to have that platform so that we can provide other options for all the employees that work for us.
That's fantastic, Tanya. I love how you made sure nobody was left out in the example you provided about that block party and recognized the folks that, were part of servicing that party and making sure that they were included. That's wonderful. Mary, over to you. What are your thoughts on this question?
Well, I do feel like Mindy and Tanya just absolutely Slade. That was so good. I wish I had a notepad with me. There was like so much good stuff. I was like, where's the fire reaction emoji here? But I also will be reaching out on LinkedIn. But so many good things shared, and I loved Tanya, you saying, it's all about I see you and you matter and your work has value. And I think, Mindy said too about like you have managers that are great at it, less great at it. We all have our strengths, but having a recognition tool like bucket list or something that equalizes the playing field. So anybody, it's not all like if a manager has 3 or 20 direct reports, the chance of somebody being seen isn't all on that, like who is their manager and what capacity do they have, but there's like likelihood that when there is that space, that people can recognize each other, that they will be able to see the peers and see the things that like a manager might not have visibility to either. So one thing I was thinking about in terms of like an example or story at Arctic Wolf is something we do. Mindy made me think of it when you were talking about your frontline workers, and just because you're visible doesn't mean your contributions are more valuable, and the inverse of that as well. And something that we have tried to be really intentional about over the years with Pack Unity is the people leading our Pack Unity alliances. So these ERGs, whether it's Happy Wolves, which is honoring Asian and Pacific Islanders, or IP Wolves, Indigenous Peoples, or BEAM, Black Employee Alliance Movement, or Black Excellence Alliance Movement. Excuse me, Black Excellence Allyship Movement. They just renamed, rebranded a couple months ago, so I'm still getting the new name. But regardless of what alliances is, we have I think 11 or 9 of them now. The people leading them are volunteers, they're employees that are taking this work on top of their jobs, and they're so selfless, so creative. They're doing all this incredible work that adds so much value to our culture. And we've built a pipeline so that we have a system that invests in those leaders and gets them to a place and helps coach them to, be bringing up the next leaders in their group to patch the torch on. But when they transition out of that leadership role, they then become a sponsor, and we support them in what does it look like to sponsor someone in their career in this capacity. And then beyond that, where the next phase for us we're dreaming up is like a board, and board members being comprised of those that have like done that full journey. But aside from that, maybe it sounds like we're just making more work, but it really is centered in recognition. How can we honor you for the contributions you've made and give you that visibility that maybe you may or may not be getting in the organization just based on your role? So we're talking about their work in all company meetings and celebrating them, and we host end of year awards, and we share their stories on LinkedIn. But it's how can we be their sponsors as within HR and people experience? And Tiffany Daniels, she's someone locally here in Minnesota that we love. She talks about being a sponsor as wearing someone's jersey. You've got their name on your back. You're taking their name into rooms maybe they're not in. And we on the HR team really try to be the sponsors, that we're wearing the jersey of those leaders to hopefully invest in them and give them these experiences so that in the future we do see executive teams in cybersecurity that reflect the diversity that our Pack Unity Alliance leadership represents and shows, but in a way that people feel celebrated and honored and valued for the contributions that they are making.
Fantastic, Mary. Really love this topic here, and how much you're including employees to drive these initiatives forward and making them feel included and executing these initiatives. What we do see from other customers of ours, it's quite similar, is looking at those DEI champions, or those allies across the organization that really help, who are actively advocating, sponsoring, and leading these initiatives that really ultimately spreads awareness across the organizations and brings everyone together. It's fantastic, Mary. I'd love to hear that. I'll pause here for a moment. Any thoughts from the community here? Any specific questions on this topic? Okay. Keep the creativity flowing, and let's move over to Our next question. How do you design recognition practices that resonates across different generations while staying inclusive for all? And Tanya, I'm going to have you kick off this question.
Sure. Thank you, Rachel. I would say first, recognizing that not everyone wants the same thing. When it comes to recognition, I think it's really about being deliberate about what you're offering, ensuring that there is choice and flexibility. What we try to do is capture the moments not just in an in-person way, but also now with our implementation of bucket list in a digital way as well. So ensuring that we're providing options, really understanding that some employees may want public spotlight and others may prefer a quiet thank you, like myself, or a thank you note. We've also given employees that really do not want the spotlight and all some growth opportunities, whether it's working on a project or something else. That's not going to overwhelm, of course. But we've really learned to provide a menu of recognition options so that people can opt into what feels more affirming to them, because it's really not a one size fits all, like I had shared earlier, when it comes to building in that flexibility. So it's about preferences and not creating any silos unintentionally, of course.
Absolutely. That's a really good point. And it all comes down to personal preference and how you like to receive and give recognition in a digital format. Sometimes it's offline. Some people like to just have a conversation or receive a little note as well, can be very meaningful. Mary, what are your thoughts on this question?
I think Tanya hit the nail on the head with autonomy, flexibility, and choice. And we at Article, we do also use bucket list, and it really does work well for us. And you do have the opportunity to like send your recognition privately if you know the person you're sending recognition to is a little bit more private, or maybe you're recognizing a project that's confidential. So that's I don't know if I have anything more to add. I think it's I also personally, as a practice, I try to do the best we can to make the best difference for the most amount of people and still continue to consider the one, but also know that there's never going to be a perfect solution for everybody. So I can go to sleep at night because you're out, and you always get the comment, you're like, we're trying so hard. But feedback is good. It's how we grow. And also I just think sometimes it is the little things that make the biggest difference, like just that meaningful email that's like, hey, the way you showed up really meant a lot to me, or that was amazing what you did there. I think we often just hear the negative, and not necessarily for the worse. It's like we assume people know the good, but then it's like, hey, we should probably work on that, or that didn't go well. Um, and I think we're working on some manager training, so the stat is fresh, but I think it's like a 7-to-1 ratio that's recommended for um, positive to constructive feedback. So it is so important that this regular recognition is happening, because if you think of recognition or like Brené Brown's marble jar, like for every one, if you have a marble jar of all your feel good stuff, for every one taken out, you need 7 to replace it. So if you're only getting the negative, like that takes a toll on you. So that's hilarious. I said I didn't have much to add, but I guess I had a couple things.
That's great, Mary. Love to hear your perspective. And Mindy, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, if it's generation or personal preferences on receiving feedback privately versus publicly, I think what we've found to work for us is just to tie our recognition back to purpose. So at Keen, that means giving back or creating memories. So we like to center around that. So our experiences are our main gifts for milestone anniversaries, or folks can choose to donate to a nonprofit that's also aligned with our brand values. We have them kind of narrowed down on the site, or they can choose to plant a tree somewhere in the world. So I think regardless of what generation someone is or their personal preferences on private versus public recognition, they love receiving those things as stuff. And I've asked people, even our most shy employees, if they're okay with being recognized on the public feed in our channel. A lot of my employees have opted out of things like the milestone anniversary videos that we do. So I know who those folks are that probably wouldn't want to be on the public feed, but they've all been fine with being recognized in the public feed and bucket list. It's not so public that they are embarrassed by it. So that's good.
I can tell you, just to add a little bit, as I was listening to Mindy, we actually did a poll with regards to our employees and across the generations. Folks have agreed that no more pizza parties, which was one of our go-tos years ago. So I just thought that that was interesting.
I'm glad you brought that up, Tanya, because we often hear that about outdated recognition program practices like pizza parties or receiving that gold pen, or you get a set of knives for your service anniversary. What are some ways that you keep your program modern and catered to the needs of folks from all walks of life? I know Mindy brought some examples earlier, like ability to donate to charity, um, or plant a tree across the world with any ESG initiatives. Mary, what are your thoughts on this?
I love that you all do experiences, Mindy, at Keen. And also, I've loved this whole conversation. Like, it's clear you all are so intentional, which is so cool to see. At Arctic Wolf, we stick to the gift cards, but we are in, I think now 22 countries, and we've gone from 2 countries to 22 in like 4 years, 3 years. It's happened very, very fast. So managing all these different countries and what's available can be quite complex. And as you can imagine, recognition isn't our full-time jobs. So honestly, having bucket list and having for each country gift cards available, and I am willing to bet the majority of people get the Amazon or Visa gift card. I do know one person on the HR team who always saves hers for did the Disney gift cards and saves up, and then when she goes to Disney, cashes out her coins for a nice little Disney gift card to take on the trip. But I mean, people love being able to use their coins for whatever they want, and it's nice that there's so many options for them. I personally am a Amazon gift card gal, just easy, but it is nice that there's so many options that people can choose what would be meaningful to them.
Fantastic. I love choice is the common theme here, because not everybody is built the same and sees value from a gold pen or a slice of pizza, for example. Okay. Now just being mindful of time here, I want to just do a quick check here on the chat. And any follow-up questions here. Let's take a look. Comments about pizza. Pineapple is a common debate on pizza. Any thoughts, questions here from the group before we move on to our last question for the session?
I just wanted to go back to Shannon's question, which was earlier on with regards to organizations and how they may be shifting if based on the current climate. And I would share that for the colleagues that I've been talking to, especially those that may work at another hospital or whatever it is, a majority of us are still doing the work, getting the impact, getting the results. But we've also taken the proactive measure of maybe adjusting our language at work and how we refer to diversity, equity, and inclusion. But I just wanted to share that just in response again to her question earlier.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Tana. Shannon, I hope that answered your question there. Okay, fantastic. Let's move on to our last question of for today. What trends or innovations do you see shaping the future of inclusivity and belonging in the workplace? I'll start off with a couple of examples and I'll move over to the group. Bucket List is in development of creating what we call an AI culture coach tool, which is going to help support leaders to suggest inclusive phrasing for recognition, as well as prompt leaders to acknowledge under recognized employees. So we're really excited about that. And other things like DEI champion or allyship awards are becoming a lot more popular with our customers. I had mentioned earlier that aligns with what Mary was chatting about, and some of the initiatives that you're already doing over at Arctic Wolf. And is that those employees who actively advocate and sponsor or lead DEI initiatives and being able to recognize for those efforts as well. We're seeing some trends in that space. But I want to hear from you, Mindy, first. Do you see any innovations or trends happening in the space with inclusivity and belonging in the workplace?
Yeah, that's a great question. I do feel like there's going to be a movement more toward, or I guess I should say less toward written communication and more toward other forms of nominating people or recognizing people. I think there's a whole subset of people out there who would much rather record themselves talking out a recognition or recording a video of themselves recognizing someone. And that's not for everybody. I know people would hate that, but just having other options, right? Other than writing. Writing, I'm good at writing and I love writing. So that's what I love, but I know that's not everyone's preference. And so I think we're really going to see maybe a shift in making that more inclusive towards people that feel like they can express themselves better in other forms of communication.
Fantastic. That's really, really great. Mindy, thank you for those insights. We have about a minute and a half left. Tanya or Mary, any thoughts on this?
No, I agree with what was already shared. The only thing that I would say, and I was just having this conversation earlier with a colleague, is though we are moving into the age of AI, maybe we're already there. It's really about being intentional and ensuring that there is still that human-centric element of it, and that we understand that the human lived experience is behind all of everything that we're trying to do, even with AI and looking at the data, looking at the metrics and things of that sort. So just wanted to add that thought.
I
Yeah.
love that. Human-centric is a common theme over the last couple of days, and we're all human. We all need that human connection with each other. Mary, any final thoughts before we wrap up?
Um, I think, it's interesting, Mindy, when you said maybe less written, because I do think AI is going to shape so much of everything, but the need for recognition isn't going to go away. And it'll be interesting to see how we still give really meaningful recognition in the age of people just spitting, like, what's something nice I can say in ChatGPT? And you see the M dash and you're like, you've never used those words before in your life. Like, it just doesn't feel personal. So it'll be interesting to see how those trends of how we communicate, like where the human, like Tanya said, that human centric piece and the person to person, like my heart to yours, like how we keep that and use AI for all the amazing ways it can help, but also find those ways to keep human things human where it matters.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your contributions and discussions today. That was a really insightful discussion. I'm sure, Becca, you have some final thoughts here before we move on to the next session. Thank you, everybody.
Yes. No, thank you so much, Rachel, for facilitating, and thank you to all the panelists and all the folks in the audience. It was such an insightful and important, relevant discussion, I'm sure. I've thrown up the professional development credits on screen just to give folks some time to put it down. And I wanted to just wrap up by giving each of the panelists a quick recognition. Tanya, let me know if you rather I like message it to you, because I know you mentioned you prefer like a handwritten note, but I have these little recognition cards from Sarah, who was our keynote speaker yesterday. So this one is for Mindy. You genuinely care about the people who share your life, as I can see from all your stories. This one's for Mary. You have an inspiring spirit that others find contagious. And Tanya, am I good to read yours out really quickly?
Yeah, sure, go for it, Becca.
Awesome. So for you, Tanya, you you continually find compelling ways to strive and grow and help the rest of us grow as well. And lastly, for you, Rachel, I feel like I can be myself when I'm with you, which is so important for creating that culture of belonging. So thank you all so much, panel, for this. And for the rest of you who are planning on joining in for our last session of the day around recognition and AI, please grab your Zoom link and I'll see you in there in a few moments. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Okay, bye-bye.